Well, I would also like to start with another thanks to the Friedrich Ebert Foundation's team. I think that this is on behalf of everyone, also the panelists, all you, Lars. I mean, we've talked about it recently. This was an excellent organization, a very short period of time. I think the atmosphere here was really enlightening and fruitful. And thank you very much to the team of the Friedrich Ebert Foundation. I think we have had a very fruitful day with many different perspectives and aspects that need to be looked into in more detail as well. But for the first time, we have addressed them in this clarity. So I think this debate on a Zeitenwende and our ambition to have such a debate is not fully comprehensive. But when it comes to the breadth of the topics, I think we've come up to what was possible here. And I would like to thank you, Lars Klingbeil, for your speech, a speech which gives orientation to social democracy. I would like to pick up a few items which seem particularly important to me. I would like to start with the term centers. Of course, we are no longer living in a bipolar or unipolar world. You have quoted Fukuyama and the end of time or history. We are living in a world which is characterized by centers. And of course, Europe is one of those centers. But in the discussion, we just talked about the Pacific region, and there are two important countries like Australia with a new social democratic government with Minister President Albanese, and New Zealand with our dear friend Jacinda Ardern, who is closely connected to the Friedrich Ebert Foundation. And both countries, in particular Australia, have at the beginning of the government of Albanese explained that the agreements quoted by Matthias Mears, the Paris Climate Agreement, and also the Millennium Goals, will be taken serious from now on. This is a major change in the international politics. If a country like Australia does this and says this, this shows that social democratic policy considerably changes the direction of whole regions, and a center. And you have pointed that out. In Europe, we have so many different governments, 13 governments that are being governed by social democrats. And in Germany, we have a social democratic chancellor. So the cooperation between these centers would, within the United Nations and within the international organizations, will change the course. Latin America is also such a center. So outside of the European Union, there is no region in the world where we have so many constitutional democracies as in Latin America, whose constitutions are so close to the European constitutions. No region in the world. But in Chile, we have a young president from the left, and in Colombia, we also have a left politician who has now been elected, and in Buenos Aires, we have someone who's not an SPD member, but who's close to the social democratic movement, and Lula da Silva, who will, I mean, if he wins the election in Brazil, Latin America will once again embark on a different path as compared to Ana Bolsonaro. So it will be another center, a center with whom the European Center can cooperate. So what was the orientation Lars Klingbeil has given us in his speech? I think it is a commitment to a reality that I, as a European politician, have discussed for a long time. And also colleagues from other European countries are represented here. I know it. The demand was Germany finally needs to lead. This is a demand which I have heard so many times over the past decades. And as the leader of a European institution, I was told it many times. And when we said, oh, okay, we're going to assume leadership. Then we were told, well, but not like that. But now we are experiencing a Zeitenwende, and we already heard in the discussion that we have to get out of our comfort zone. And if this Zeitenwende should be given an orientation, then the Social Democrats should make sure that Germany takes on a leading role within the European Union. And Lars Klingbeil has clearly pointed it out. We want to do it, we will do it, but how? We want to do it within Europe. We want to do it as a European leading power who is committed to European values, but who also makes sure that the European values, if attacked, are being defended. And this is brilliant, and I would like to thank you for this speech. And when I might follow up on that, on the final, the concluding panel. In our dealings with Russia, which has embarked on a path under the Russian leadership, a path of aggression and against the multipolar world and world order. So a country which has the right to veto in the Security Council of the United Nations sends missiles to another country. I mean, they have decided against multilateralism. They have decided against a rule-based order with aggression. They want to achieve their goals by use of force, and we have to counter that. Without ignoring that Russia exists, that this people exists, and as a European politician, please allow me to say the following. The Russian language is not only the language of this man, it's also the language of a great culture. And when Russian dissidents are being attacked in Germany because of the language, then, of course, in particular, from the point of view of Social Democrats, we have to prevent that and stop that. This reminds us of the First World War. I mean, I learned it when I was in the United States, that people who had always spoken German were suddenly seen as the enemy because they spoke German, even though they were against this war. And when we think about Russia and how we deal with Russia in the future, I would like to refer to the speech of Lars Klingbeil, and I would like to quote the French Foreign Minister Robert Schuman. When Europe eventually wants to have peace, then Germany needs to become a democracy. Auschwitz was liberated on January the 27th, January 1945, and the Federal Republic was founded shortly afterwards. On May the 9th, the young Federal Republic of Germany became an equal member in the coal and steel community. So the countries were prepared to stretch out a hand to Germany and to incorporate it. And Schuman's dream was, if we eventually want to live in peace in Europe, Germany needs to become a democracy. And this has become true over the past 80 years. So what Lars Klingbeil said in terms of the Zeitenwende is that especially Germany needs to rely on Europe. This is a logic based on our history. And this is why I think this speech gave us clear orientation. Europe consists, or the European Union consists of 27 member states. Europe is much more. Europe also comprises countries that are not yet members, the Ukraine, also the states of the Western Balkans. But if we think in terms of the centers that Lars Klingbeil described, we have to consider the following. I would like to quote my colleague Jean-Claude Juncker, who used to say in Brussels that Europe consists of many small states and some states that have not yet understood that they will be small states if they act alone. So the Federal Republic of Germany would not be able to tackle those topics that we've addressed today, the issue of migration, climate change, tax policy, the international trade policy. the food policy. So Germany would not be able to tackle all this alone, or France would neither be able to tackle it alone. And Luxembourg neither. And Malta, for example. Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Austria, the Netherlands, or Belgium. None of these countries would be able to tackle it alone, nor Ireland or Portugal. So Europe consists of many small countries, but in its sum, it's a community of states based on joint principles, on joint values, which are committed to the transnational cooperation, and thus we become a global player. We become a center which can cooperate with other centers. But we are the center of democracy, of rule of law, of freedom, of respect, of dignity and tolerance. So all these are values of Europe, and at the same time the values of the International Social Democrats. In this spirit, I think this day has given me, and I guess all of you, orientation. I would like to thank Lars Klingbeil for it, and all the panelists who, during the panels, have provided a lot of good input. I would like to thank the moderators. I would like to thank all of you for this great stamina on such a long conference day. I mean, it can be quite exhausting, but I think it was really worthwhile today. So thank you very much, and I would like to close the conference now. Thank you.